Welcome to the AutoSportRadio.com 2015 show. I'm your host, Don Kay. We are live from McGilvery Speedway, 30th and High School in Speedway, Indiana. A couple of things I want to mention. First off, I want to welcome some special guests who are joining us tonight. Sam Schmidt's mom and dad, Marvin and Judy Schmidt, are in the house. I want to welcome them. And sitting in the back room in the smoking section, Joe and Linda Barlam are here. And of course, Joe is assistant crew chief for NHRA Top Fuel Team. Joe is one of the all-time greats. Did I say that right? All-time greats? Okay. I want to remind you, for those of you who know Milo Vanek, he and Betty Joe were the world's and Indianapolis's #1 volunteers. They were here every Tuesday night and sat at a table right over underneath the big television. Milo is in very, very bad health. If you have a chance and can send him a card, if you don't get this, it'll be on our YouTube channel shortly. You can get it, but his name is Milo, M-I-L-O, Vanek, V-A-N-E-K, and he is at 9641 Market Street, North Lima, Ohio, 44452. He would love to hear from you. I talked to Betty Joe the other day, and she said when he gets to consciousness, he says, "Are we going to the radio show?" and tries to get out of bed. The man must be silly. I want to mention also that we are being advanced in the world of computer by Computer Overdrive. As I said, we are now on YouTube. We're streaming. We've got a brand new computer tonight starting at super high speed. So the picture and the quality should be even better than it has been the last couple of weeks. And if you have any computer problem, I don't care what it is, you have a question, you want to solve something, fix a problem, fix a website, whatever you need, Computer Overdrive can handle it. And the guy you want to talk to is a young man sitting here, Jack. They're located at 5240 Crawfordsville Road. It's on a little frontage road on the east side of the PNC Bank at Lyndhurst and Crawfordsville. And they can handle anything. And they got 14 years of experience. And his partner, Jack's partner, is a former crew chief for Johnny Unser and for Davey Hamilton. So they're computer people, and if you want to get something fixed, do yourself a favor. Give them a call. The number is 317-328-0766. That's 317-328-0766. They can help you. Trust me. They helped us in an hour. We were up on YouTube, and it's only gotten better since then. Tonight's the culmination of a lot of work by Jack. I want to remind you also that the former night before the 500 is no longer. It's now the day before the 500, and it will be feature the USAC Silver Crown cars in addition to the USF 2000 and the Pro Mazda cars. Your first race of the USF 2000 starts at 12:15, followed by the Silver Crown race at 1:15 and the Pro Mazda race at 2:45, all at Lucas Oil Raceway. It's no longer the night before, it is the day before. And if you are looking to take a ride in a single seat or two seat at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, you can do that. You can either call 317-243-7171, extension 101, or you can go to IndyRacingExperience.com, look up the date that you can work best for you, and in the promo box put Don K, and you will get a 20% discount on either the two-seat or the single seat. And if you have a child 9 years old or a little older, or a little bit older, you can go on a daily ride. They have the what they call the Victory Lap. It's for kids. And if you mention Don K at that, you will get a free photo, which is usually $60, but you will get the picture for free. And WIBC's An Evening with Mario, Friday, May 15th. That's this coming Friday at Fountain Square Theater, 7 to 9. Tickets are on sale now at the events section of WIBC.com. Tickets are going fast. There's not too many left, as I understand it. But if you're a Mario fan, it's probably something you can't pass up. All right, my first guest is here. Young man came all the way from England just to drive race cars. He is currently, I think, 4 points behind Ed Jones, who is leading the Indy Lights series. He has a number of podium finishes already. He's got wins under his belt already, and he's on the move. He's driving for Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports, and one of the really nice guys in motorsports. Please welcome Mr. Jack Harvey. What the hell was that?
Excuse me?
Was that one of your fans? Oh, there he is. Okay. How are you?
Pretty good, mate. How are you?
Not too bad for an old guy. First thing I got to find out about, I got this secret, I was told, that your mother likes to meet people. And I've been told that she can go into a place she's never been in her life, spend 3 hours, walk out, never spend a dime, and know everybody there.
Yeah, it's awkward sometimes. She'll go to a place that she's never been, and then they'll be inviting her back. They can say she can stay in her house, and I mean, I don't know how she does it, because I like to hope that I'm a little bit social, but she takes what I can do to a whole nother level. She's a unique lady.
That's what I hear. And somebody was looking to see if she was with you, but she's out scouting tonight again, huh?
I guess so. My dad's back in the UK, so who knows what she's up to right now.
What made you decide to come to America and race here?
I've always enjoyed America. The first time I ever came actually was in 2013. I went to the Houston Grand Prix, and it was baking hot, and it almost turned me off because it was like 110 degrees. And basically, for people who don't know me, I've had a European background through go-karts, through open wheel racing. I actually competed with Connor Daly in GP3 in 2013. We were teammates, and it's actually him who I went out to see in Houston. And obviously everyone, or most people here tonight, are motorsport fans, so they know the crisis that Formula One is in at the moment. And I've always wanted to come to America, and I got the opportunity to racing with Sam. So he spoke with my sponsors, the Racing Steps Foundation, and together they made the deal happen, and they offered it to me and said, look, would you like to do it, or would you like to carry on in Europe? And I said, no, I'd love to go to the States. So I got on a plane and went to Sebring, and then the rest was history.
You've been doing quite well this year. You've got, I think in St. Petersburg, you were runner-up twice. You've got a win here last week. You're, I think, 4 points. Yeah. You're 4 points behind Ed Jones, who came out. I don't think anybody ever heard of him, and he comes in here like a ton of bricks. Did you ever race against him in Europe?
I used to coach him, so I guess I did a pretty good job.
Oh boy! So now the teacher's got to beat the student.
Well, it looks that way.
Now I read that still in the back of your mind, or maybe in the front of your mind for that matter, is that you hope to eventually get to Formula One. Now, I got to tell you, in my dealings with Formula One, and they go way back to the 60s, you could talk to a driver at that time. Now you can't get to see him, let alone talk to him, and you're a friendly, outgoing guy. You've got to now be getting used to American racing fans who want to come and talk to you, want to get an autograph. You go to Formula One, that won't happen, or very unlikely.
Well, I like to think that given the opportunity that I had to come in 2013, I could have carried on racing in Europe and pursued that goal. But I mean, honestly, I came to the States, so if that doesn't show everybody that I'm committed to IndyCar and hopefully racing in the Indy 500 one day, then I don't know what does. I mean, ultimately, actions speak louder than words, and I came to the States. I've stayed here, and then after what we saw a little bit at the weekend, I don't really want to go back to Europe and race. So hopefully something happens and I can keep staying here.
Now, this is your second year in lights? Yeah. I want to keep him here. Is this your second year in lights?
You paid attention lots when I came in last year?
Yeah, I know you were here last year. I said
it was. Yeah.
This is your second year. I got a note right here. It says second year. I just wanted to make sure you knew.
I knew.
Is your goal, do you think you need another year in lights, or do you think at the end of this year you'll be ready to move up?
I mean, honestly, I felt like I was ready at the end of last season. It's difficult. I mean, ovals were such a new thing for me last year, and the first oval I ever drove was the glorious Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Ultimately, that was probably my weakest area of improvement last year, and Sam and my sponsors again got together at the end of the season and put a really good deal on the table to stay and do lights again for my second season, which brings us up to date. So I definitely don't feel there's any harm in doing another season, learning more about American racing, especially the ovals. So, yeah, I mean, hopefully at the end of the season the goal is to move up into IndyCar.
Have you gotten used to the high speed and the close racing that you do on an oval?
I love the ovals, I really did enjoy it. The first time I ever drove one was here on the Thursday before we raced on carb day, so I mean, talk about getting thrown into the deep end. But I love it, I really, really do enjoy it, and I know that guys who come over from Europe typically have mixed feelings. It seems like they either really love them or they really are not bothered about them. I'm happy to say that I'm in the love them category. So many good ones here. The racing's so difficult and unique, a lot harder than what people in Europe give it credit for. Without sounding bad or anything, there's a really bad stigma in Europe when it comes to ovals that, if they're just flat out, how do you go faster? And then, I mean, when you come and drive on one, you soon realise that it's a lot more cut out than that. You've got to be so accurate with what you're doing. The small differences make a huge difference. And, when you're in I can imagine when you're in a 30-car train like you get at the Indy 500, it must be really, really difficult because you're anticipating what everyone else is doing, going over 220 miles an hour. And for anyone who's driven on the road, as soon as you go fast, going fast is fine. It's stopping and reacting is the hard bit. And I'm just hoping that I get the opportunity to try it one day.
Well, I have found, as you said, when European drivers come over, in fact, I've had a couple that came to drive for the team that I worked for, and first thing I said when they walked, "You've been on an oval?" "No." "You're in for a real surprise." Mm-hmm. And of course, when they first got in and they see some guy running alongside them or come up, they go, "Holy Toledo, how close they are." Then once they got the feel of it and got the comfort of the fact that the guy running with you isn't going to hit you either, because it caused both, they really enjoyed it. It's a fun thing, and it's a lot more difficult than the Europeans think.
Well, I think the first time I went flat at the Speedway, I probably said something worse than "Holy Toledo." I think it probably started with an F and something else, but I mean, it really is difficult, and way more difficult than what people in Europe ever give it credit for. I mean, we recognise what the 500 stands for, the history behind it, the gravitas of winning the event and the prestige it comes with. However, when I came and saw it for the first time last year, the whole build-up, to the race itself, the cool-down period, and what the whole month of May means, especially in Indiana, but also in America on a larger perspective, it was mind-blowing. I don't think Formula One draws, that same atmosphere. Maybe at, Monaco, for example, the real crown jewel races, but it's just amazing what this whole race means, and it's more than just the racing at this point. It's a culture thing as well. The whole city massively embraces it. And I just don't feel like Europe ever. I think they understand what the race means, but until you come experience it, you don't understand to what level it is.
There's been some guys come from Europe. Jimmy Clark, for one, who's being honored this year. Sir Jackie Stewart ran here a couple of times. Nigel Mansell come damn near won it in his rookie year. Came very close. Again, a guy who hadn't had any experience on ovals, but when you're a driver and that's what you do and you're good at it, you can master it rather quickly, which they did. So it's been done. Now it's your turn.
I hope so.
The new car this year, the new lights car, you drove the one last year, obviously, the old one. Is there a huge difference between the two, and is one easier to drive than the other?
I mean, in terms of is one car easier to drive than the other, no, not really, because ultimately you're pushing to such a high limit. It doesn't matter if you're in an older car or a new car, it's still difficult to drive, or at least you should be trying to that level. I think all the guys at Dallara did a really fantastic job developing the new car. It's a lot more advanced, actually. But I mean, just to go back one point, the old Indy Lights car was designed only for oval racing, which then they converted to do road courses. So it wasn't necessarily a purpose-built car. The new car it's all them things, It's an accumulation of the last 12 years, in terms of technology, Safety in the new car is massive too, and they produce the Li-15, and I think all the guys at Dallara, all the guys who helped from Cosworth, and everyone from AEI in the UK, and everyone at Dan Anderson Promotions should really take a lot of credit for the actual new car, because ultimately, it's 450 brake horsepower, very similar to last year's car. But on the road course of the weekend, we were nearly 2.5 seconds quicker than what we managed there the year before. So 2.5 seconds over, a minute 15 lap is huge amount of time. So I think everybody who had any input into that program deserves a huge pat on the back, because they really took a car that was already good fun to drive and made it a lot better. So, I think everybody involved in that project has done a fantastic job.
Are you looking forward to the Freedom 100 and getting to run that one on the oval?
Yeah, I can't wait. I mean, Indy 500 is the main race of the year for the IndyCar guys. I think the Freedom 100 is the main race for us. If you could choose one to win, it would be that one.
Do you think that the Mazda Road to Indy program is a good one, that it does what it's designed to do and build your talent and get you ready to go to the Indy cars?
Well, the Mazda Road to Indy program is so unique, and that was another reason actually why we came to the States in the first place. Starting off from the US 2000 program, it rewards winning, which motorsport does anyway, but for the guys coming up, and me being one of them, trying to find the budget to race in next season is already difficult. But every time you step up into another category, the budgets increase, and trying to find any amount of money is hard. So then when you're trying to find double the money than the previous year, I mean, it's like looking for a needle in a haystack. So I feel what everyone at Mazda is able to put into the Mazda Road to Indy program is incredible, and I feel like maybe it doesn't get enough of the recognition it supports, because if you win in US 2000, it can promote you into Pro Mazda. If you win in Pro Mazda, it can promote you into Indy Lights. And hopefully, like the last few champions have shown, if you can win in Indy Lights, you at least can drive in the 500 or in a few select IndyCar races. So, I mean, does the program work? Yes, absolutely. The further up the program you get, the more you still need some extra sponsorship. But I feel like all the drivers are incredibly lucky to have that, because I can speak from experience. There's nothing in Europe similar to that in terms of what the series is willing to provide you. I mean, I'm very lucky with the people who support me. The Racing Steps Foundation is a charitable foundation, basically, who help young British drivers. But there's a criteria in which you've got to do with that. If you come over here and race in the Mazda Road to Indy program, there's no criteria apart from, at the end of the day, you need to be the person who's won the most championship points, standing on that top step, and then you can get promoted. So, I really do believe it's a really unique, special program.
Will your current European sponsors, British sponsor, will they continue if you say, you say you win the championship, you get a $750,000 or whatever it is that comes with it. Will they come with you to go to IndyCar, or is that a little over their head?
Well, I hope they do. I mean, I've been with them now for 7 years, so it'd be nice to make it around even number 8 if we can get the deal done. I mean, I've already been speaking with Sam a little bit as to what can happen next year, and I mean, a lot of it obviously revolves around winning the championship and taking some budget with us that we already have to be a little bit competitive in that market. But I don't know is the honest answer. I like to hope so. If not, then at least I can give a good account of myself and say, hey, I've ticked all these boxes. I feel like I'm ready for the opportunity. Maybe they'll go, yes, you are. Here's the extra budget. I mean, all I'm trying to do is tick as many boxes as possible and let it be known that I'm ready for that next step.
How did you get to decide I want to be a professional race driver? Did you not play golf well, or you weren't good at tennis? Or?
Well, I'm terrible at golf. I mean, don't ever see me on a golf course. I mean, being from Europe, I was pretty good at soccer, honestly. My dad was a massive petrol head, so that soon stopped, and I went go-karting. And probably when I was 11 years old, was when I really got the bug badly for motorsport, which I guess everyone else has had in their own way. I'm just very lucky that mine came in the form of driving. My dad raced in a series in the UK called National Autograss, which is very similar to sprint cars. Over here, it's dirt oval racing. So I've been around cars my entire life. I mean, there's a really funny picture of me when I'm like 2 years old, pulling a funny face while the go-karts are going around in the background. So racing's always been a part of my life, and it always will be a part of my life. And I got the bug. I'm still here now, trying to pursue the ultimate dreams. And I really recognise how lucky I am to do all these things.
What's it like driving for Sam Schmidt? I mean, a former driver, a winning driver, a guy who knows all the ins and outs of motorsports. Started out in lights, won everything there with his teams. Now has moved on to Indy cars. But what's it like to drive? If you got a problem, you got a question, you got something, is he available anytime, day or night?
Sam's the most perfect team boss I've ever had, and I can't ever thank Sam enough, because when I first moved to the States, I went through kind of a difficult patch in which he was, massively supportive. He helped me, he was on the phone all the time, and obviously this is in the UK where there's a massive time difference to Vegas where Sam lives. So I mean that's 8 hours, and I could call him at any moment, and he was always on the phone. And then he was so instrumental in helping make the transition into my second season of Indy Lights. He made it pretty clear he wanted me to stay, but so many pieces of the jigsaw have to come together to get a complete picture. And I mean, really, I have so much more to say to Sam than thanks, but everything that you would want from a team boss, he's all that and more. He's a wealth of knowledge. He's got so much experience in his own, from driving, from being a team owner, and above all, he's such a nice guy. He's got a great attitude towards life, and he watching him in Long Beach for the short time I've known him, watching him be able to drive again, I can't imagine how it made him feel, because I was pretty much welling up for him. He's just the nicest guy.
And somehow he has managed over the years to put together some pretty good people in his team that know how to put a car together on any given day for any given series, and you can win. And it's got to be nice to know that when they give you a car and you go out to the starting line, you're in a car that can win.
Well, I mean, there's some pressure attached to that, because if you're not winning, people are asking like, "Oh, you're in a Schmidt car. Why aren't you winning?" So yeah, I mean, we've all got very common goals. Sam's a winner. He wants to win, and he makes that crystal clear. When I met him for the first time, he's like, "Hey, they're not here to be second, and we believe in you. You need to believe in us," which I do with all my heart. And hopefully this year, in 6 races, we've had a win, 4 seconds, and a DNF, which wasn't really through fault of my own. It's a great team to be a part of. I'm just a very, very lucky guy.
Long Beach had to be disappointing. You're on the pole and you didn't finish a lap and you're out.
Well, I mean, I didn't even get around the first corner.
Right.
I got a guy hit me from behind, but that's racing. It happens, and what can you do?
Well, you can keep charging what you are.
Absolutely.
And you're only 4 points behind, and you can catch him this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be his first time on the oval, so I know how he's feeling, because I did it all last year. Hopefully that one, my second year, is going to help me a little bit, but there's a lot of really good drivers in Indy Lights this year. I'd say the championship on the whole is more competitive than last season, so we've got to make sure we're on top of our games to try and get that biggest prize of all this year, which would be to one, win the championship, and secondly, to win the Freedom 100.
Do people around recognize you now? I mean, particularly
No.
you live in... No, really? You don't? They don't recognize you?
Absolutely not. I am so not mainstream yet, but I don't like that either. I'm quite happy just walking around the street and going to my local Mayo and just shopping. It's nice.
Well, if I see you, I'll say hello.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Do you like living in America? Have you gotten used to the American
I have.
diet and American food and American stuff, or is there something that you miss from home?
Well, I mean, American diet is such a vague question. It depends if I'm in race mode or if I'm just relaxing. If I'm relaxing, I think American food is the best by far. When I'm in race mode, it's a bit more tricky to eat right. Portion sizes are great, apart from it's kind of tricky again when I'm in race mode. But I love living here, especially in Indiana. I'm lucky again that I get to travel around the States. I go to some pretty cool places. But I in particular, like in Indianapolis, I live just up in Carmel. I've got an apartment there anyway. Everyone's so friendly. I think that's the biggest thing I've found, and I just want to thank everybody here tonight, because my mum's actually in town, but she's not here because I don't know what she's doing, gallivanting around. I mean, in general, everyone's so hospitable towards us, whether I go downtown or they go to the local supermarket, whether I'm at the track, and I mean, really that's just a thank you to everybody in this room, because I've travelled around the world a little bit, and I know that it's not always like that, so I just want to say thank you to everybody for always making us feel so welcomed here, in your home state. I just really, really appreciate it, because it makes my stay a lot more enjoyable.
Well, I'll tell you what, the people around here, and race fans in general, love open wheel, fast cars. And somebody like yourself who is willing to stop and sign an autograph or pose for a picture or say hello or whatever it might be are what American fans are used to.
Well, I mean, ultimately, there's no sport in the world without fans, you know, and especially bigger sports. If you've got no fans, you've got no sport. And I think IndyCar fans are incredibly loyal, especially in Indiana. So to not do any of them things, I think, really is poor show. So again, to everybody who's come out tonight, I know I've disturbed your dinner a little bit, but just really thank you to everybody. You know, thank you to Don for always inviting me to come back onto the show. It's I know you say thank you for coming out, but I mean, really, if you weren't doing it, I'd be still sitting at home playing on my PlayStation. So, you know, just a big thank you for you for doing it week in, week out.
Do you go to Pit Fit and work out?
I kind of go to the Pit Fit's rival, so we have a bit of friendly banter back and forth. I go to Core Pilates and Fitness just up in Merchant Square in Carmel.
How often are you there?
I mean, when the season's on, probably 3 times a week, so it's like 3 hours a day, plus I play a little bit of squash. So, I mean, it's pretty intensive.
Do you feel that driving a race car is something you must be physically fit to handle? It's not something that some Joe Blow can climb behind the wheel and go up and go?
I hope so, otherwise all that training is just for nothing.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to come here. We look forward to having you back on the podium, I'm sure, at the Freedom 100. And I know the step you're looking for is the one just above where you've been. Well, you were there earlier, so you know where it is. You can find it real easily. Well, good luck to you.
Thanks, buddy.
Continue with good success with Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports. You're with the right organization. Have a good time. Good luck for the season. Hope you win the title.
Thank you. Have a good evening, everybody.
Jack Harvey. Driving for Sam Schmidt. My other guest is here, but I want to make mention of a couple little things. One thing I want to mention, for those of you who've been around for a while, you remember in 1971 when the pace car crashed into the photographer stand down by turn 1 at the end of the pit road? There was a guy standing up on there. When the car hit, he fell off, broke his hip, spent 6 weeks in the hospital, and last year he had to go back and have the pin that they put in broke. He had it replaced, but he hasn't given up. He's here every time, every day, all the time, limping sometimes last year in pain. But Russ Lake is back. I want to welcome Russ here. I've been after Russ for about 4 or 5 years to write a book, and he said he's got chapter 1 almost done. Trouble is, it's about 400 pictures, and he wants to cut that down to 3. But he's working on it. He'll get it done eventually, if we all live long enough to see it. I want to welcome Russ. His dad, by the way, was the track manager for the Milwaukee Mile for about 60 years. And he also worked down here. Racing is in Russ's blood. I want to remind you that Sam Pierce Chevrolet in Daleville is a place to go to get the best price on a car. They say the best price for a car is in the country, and that's where Sam Pierce is in Daleville, Indiana. Take I-69 north to exit 34, go south 1 mile, and you won't miss him. Sam Pierce Chevrolet. And when you deal with Sam, you will find out why he always rates top of the line for customer satisfaction. Founded in 1993 to spearhead Honda's entry into IndyCar racing, Honda Performance Development has overseen successful racing efforts at all levels of the sport, from karting and quarter midgets to IndyCar and prototype sports cars. HPD offers race engines and competition products for professional, amateur, and entry-level racers. For more information about HPD and the company's racing product lines, please visit hpd.honda.com. That's hpd.honda.com. And I got news for you. I think when you see what's going to happen when Honda gets out here and gets qualifying, gets into the race, they're coming on. And you don't want to miss the 14th to the 17th this weekend, the Lake Forest Sports Cars Spring Vintage Festival at Road America. So if you're anywhere in the area, Milwaukee, Chicago, you want to see some beautiful cars, You need to go to Road America, the Lake Forest Sports Car Spring Vintage Festival. Great show, great cars, absolutely beautiful. And if you're a vintage car buff, go to svra.com and subscribe to the Vintage Racing Quarterly. It is a first-class magazine, beautiful, and you see stories about the cars you know and you loved, and find out what some of the drivers are doing that used to race those very cars. Looking for a pre-owned vehicle or a new Toyota? Stop by and see Dave Langston at Beck Toyota. Beck has been in business on the South Side for over 35 years and has an outstanding reputation. Beck Toyota is the #1 certified pre-owned Toyota dealership in the state of Indiana. Beck has an inventory of over 100 different makes and models. Dave is a sales professional, treats you with respect, and makes the buying process an easy one. Give him a call. Number is 317-760-1613. That's 317-760-1613. Located on the south side of Indianapolis on US 31. And if you're looking for insurance for your home, your car, or your life, do what I did. Call Mike Pardee at VP Insurance. Let him give you a quote. He might surprise you. He did me better coverage for less money. So call him. Number is 317-248-0070. That's Mike Pardee, VP Insurance, located at 5004 West 16th Street in Speedway. Call him, 317-248-0070. Now, my next guest is a young man who's been here on a number of occasions. He is decorated. He is an author. He is a race driver. He's a winning race driver. He has been on more teen, a spokesman for more teen causes than you could possibly imagine. But he is here tonight, and I've got a message for him when he gets here. Please welcome Mr. Zach Veach.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me tonight. It's a pleasure.
Why are you sitting here talking to me and not in a car?
Hey, man, I wish that I was. It's just one of those things. I mean, I look at it as Sage Karam last year. After his Indy Lights year, he kind of had a little bit of a season where he had some time sitting, trying to get things together for the next year. And I mean, unfortunately, it's very hard not being in a race car this weekend. This whole season so far, we're trying really hard for IndyCar during the off season, and actually, we've started putting a deal together in October. By the time we got to February, we were almost to the contract phase, and then, sadly, that fell apart. So with it being so close to the start of the season, a lot of companies already have their budget set for the year. So, we're just working hard to try to get something together for the last few IndyCar races this year.
You think it's possible you could get in a car?
I think so. I mean, I have a lot of faith. We're working on a lot of things right now. If they materialize, that's the kind of the thing, that's the question. But, I mean, I'm very lucky to still be with Andretti AutoSport. The guys there are incredible. They told me until the day I sign with another team, I'm considered an Andretti teammate, an Andretti driver. So that's definitely, where I'm trying to work for right now.
Well, you're a young guy and you're not ready for this yet. However, you have been in the booth on the IMS radio network.
Yes, I have.
And I was contacted by several of the members of the IMS radio network when they saw your name pop up, and they said, members of the IMS radio network have asked me to tell you how much they have enjoyed working with you in the booth. I think that's very good.
No, that's very special. No, the guys there, Wally, Mark, Paul, I mean, just getting to work with all of them is such a pleasure. I mean, for me, that's the thing that I think, any driver should do at some point is get to go out into, the booth or the truck and see how it's produced, because you don't really understand how much work goes into being able to put your race out there so, fans like you guys get to hear what we do. And, just being in it and working with those guys, they're not doing it because, they just like to talk on the radio. They're doing it because they love racing. And, seeing their passion to broadcast it, it's exactly the same as our passion to drive it. So it's very fun. And, I mean, for me even, it's been more of a learning experience because I've been able to take a step back from actually being in the car. And you see a lot more from actually, broadcasting it and understanding everything that's going on. So even though I'm not driving right now, I'm still trying to use it as a learning kind of opportunity and be even more ready once I get my chance.
I have been listening, and you've done an outstanding job. And I think
Thank you.
The thing that's that's interesting about getting somebody like yourself who is a winner, who's been in close racing, is you see what's going on, you understand it, and you can usually see what's going to happen down the road because you see what's going on from a different perspective.
Well, that's, for me, I feel like there's drivers that, from the day they sit in a car, they're fast out of the gate and they have a lot of talent. A lot of things didn't come easy for me. I've had to work every step of the way, and I think I've made a lot more mistakes than I had success until this last season of Indy Lights. So, unfortunately, I've kind of been on both sides of the fence, and it kind of gives me a good perspective to see, what's happening and what these guys are going through, especially in Indy Lights.
Well, I know 2 years ago you were struggling, and I said, don't get too upset because that's happened. I forget who it was that had the same problem, and next year he's winning. And last year, of course, you did extremely well. You accounted for yourself and showed the fact that you can, in fact, drive a race car.
Well, I can't take all the credit there. I mean, luckily for me, my size was just always the biggest thing. So until the last season, I was living in Ohio, so I decided to move here to Indiana to be able to train at Pit Fit. Jack was talking about, he kind of works out as the rival there. But, they allowed me, I gained 10 pounds before the start of last season. And that just put me in the best shape that I've ever been. So driving the car was actually easy to the point where I could actually think about what I was doing, and that allowed me to go a lot faster. And, they've helped me get IndyCar ready as well. I mean, I'm up 20 pounds from where I was at the end of Indy Lights season last year. So, we're pushing hard. Just a lot of eating right now, actually. So the American diet's great for me, being an American.
So in other words, what you're telling me is I'm in good shape to drive a race car.
Oh, for sure. Totally. I mean, you might not fit in my seat, but we can mold you one. That'll be no issue.
I got news for you. I don't think I could fit in the damn car. And if I got in, they'd have to get Crisco to get me out.
Well, that's Stellara's new safety. If you get wedged in there good enough, there's no danger of ever coming out.
In my case, yeah, that's true. Have you had a chance to test an IndyCar yet?
I have not. I've got to sit in one a few times and, make noises and push the pedals and steer it, but everything's been left to my imagination at this point. But that's the only bad thing about, the season that we have being so condensed. There's really no time to test right now because everything's so back-to-back, but I definitely think the opportunity to test is there. We're getting that taken care of, but right now my main focus is just trying to get the IndyCar side done for actual races, and I definitely like to do Mid-Ohio since that's being my home race, so that's kind of on the bulletin board right now for sure.
You have spent most of your time, have you not, in road racing?
Yes, I have.
Do you like the ovals, as Jack was mentioning? In Europe, they think that's ridiculous, and he said, boy, it's a lot more difficult than you realize.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm very American in some sense. I come from a very small country town. My family has a trucking company. I helped out on farms growing up until I started racing. So, I mean, for me, that's what I embrace because that's what says America. The ovals are something that I just was always excited about running on ever since I was little because we were surrounded by, dirt sprint tracks and everything like that growing up. And my dad was a national champion with truck and tractor pulling, if you guys know what that is. So he had a two-wheel drive blower truck. So the ovals seem, pure and American to me. And, I mean, the one race that we all want to win is on an oval. So they need to be your favorite.
I have a feeling that if and when, and I have no doubt that you'll accomplish it. I mean, the things that this young man has accomplished is amazing. The organizations he represents aiming at kids, which of course is what the heck he is.
Hey, now, quick side note. So in the meantime, I've been helping out with the IndyCar experience. So I've been doing all the two-seater rides, all the pace car rides, and for me, the joy is not driving the car. The joy is seeing everybody that's going to ride, and they all look at me, and they're like, is this kid old enough to have a driver's license? So I play it up. Like, they get in the car with me, and they're like, do you have your license? I said, no, in a couple of years I will.
Have you ever thought to be out of the car, and they put somebody and strap him in, and you say so that he can hear you, if you got the instruction how to start this thing, and look at the guy sitting there or gal and go, uh-oh.
The only thing I've ever done is said, wait, which one's the brake?
So do you drive for Indy Racing Experience regularly?
Yes, no, I've been lucky enough. I've done the two-seater at every race weekend so far, and we've been spending a lot of time at the Speedway here. So Connor Daly was actually joking about this with me in Long Beach before, he jumped in the coin car. But he goes, I hate to say this, but this is the first time you and I have ever been paid to drive a race car, and and that's the sad truth. So I'm happy either way.
I got to say, that's probably a good idea and a good experience, because Davey Hamilton said when he was out, while he wasn't driving, the fact that he drove the two-seater at all the tracks, he got the feel for him, he knew it, and he was familiar with the driving. So that part, he didn't get rusty.
For sure, and the other side of it, you never know who you're going to meet. That's kind of how Jeff Gordon got his ride. He was doing one of the driving experiences, and you never know who you're going to run to for A, and then, B, as well, it keeps you at the racetrack. And this is a sport that even if you're out of the car, if you're out of sight, you're out of mind. So you never know what's going to happen over the course of a weekend. I mean, you don't want to count on anyone's misfortune, but, you can't miss up an opportunity by sitting at home.
That's true. And well, since you're driving the two-seater, obviously you've got your hat and your suit, so you're ready to go if somebody calls like Connor did.
Oh, yeah, no, so I've already made about 5 passes through the garages here at Indy, just carrying all my stuff, seat and everything. I'm like, hey, guys, how about that backup car?
I have to stop for a second because I made a boo-boo. I mentioned the lovely and talented photographer, Russ. I forgot to mention his brother, Mike, who has been an observer for over 40 years. Now, I'm not sure what he can see anymore, but he's been doing it for 40 years, so I want to welcome Mike Lake as well. I apologize. In fact, I was told, Mike, that you taught Glenn everything he knows. The trouble is I haven't figured out what he knows yet. I don't know what you taught him.
It's the effort that counts.
Yeah, it's all. It's get up and go, or got up and went. I don't know which. Have you ever had any inkling or thought of wanting to go to another series?
Well, my heart's here in open wheel racing, that's for sure. Being in the Midwest, I'm not too far from Ohio, so, I love being in Indiana. But I did get the opportunity to go a couple of weekends ago out to Laguna Seca to run the Tudor race. I drove in PC, so Prototype Challenge, and to be honest, for me, it was fun because it's just a whole different kind of world in a way. Everything's so intense here and everything's so knife edge. And, we made the joke that in Indy Lights, you would pass maybe 30 cars a season. Out there, everything is just kind of laid back and you'd pass, 30 cars or more a session. But, for me, I think I might do just a little more sports car stuff throughout the year until I get my Indy car stuff, nailed down, because the main part's just being in a car. And I've got to spend a lot of time with Mario the past few months. And, he just, like he's always said, you just got to be driving something because you can learn something from anything. And, Jill DeFerrin as well said it at dinner one night that if you look at Simon Pagenaud, he went away for a while in the sports car world. He learned a lot, and he came back even stronger. So it's just one of those things. You just got to make the best of whatever situation you have, but this is the main goal. I don't want to stray from here, and if I'm going to drive anything that has fenders on it, it's going to be a sports car.
Well, when Simon was driving for Jill, and Jill started an IndyCar team, I said, "You've got to drive for me." He said, "Oh, I'm sure." Of course, that didn't happen. And he and I were talking one day, and he said, I know I can win an IndyCar. He said, "I'm going to change my name." "Oh, to what?" "Simon Indy." Okay. Well, he's shown he can drive a car, and the sports cars didn't hurt him at all.
Oh.
Hello.
You already broke it?
Probably did.
That's not good.
Same thing.
I got a little history in broadcasting if you want.
I used to have.
And our next guest is. Well, we can switch off here.
Hello. I will pass it back and forth.
All right, that works.
You didn't sneeze on this, did you?
I don't think so.
Okay. What did you find similar? Is there anything that you take away from sports cars driving style, anything from sports cars that you can bring to IndyCar?
For sure. I mean, quite a lot, to be honest, because the main thing from sports car racing, like I said, is that you pass so much during a course of a session and a race weekend that, I mean, it's a lot like driving an oval on a road course, because if you're in a faster prototype kart, I mean, you're coming up on these, GT Daytonas and GTLMs so quickly that you got to look ahead and think about when you're going to be able to be in the right zone to pass this car. So for me, I think that was great, just getting that extra experience to be able to manage a gap and say, okay, I can throw it in here, that's a little too far. And the nice thing about it, too, is pit stops, because I haven't got to do pit stops yet. So, we got to do those in Laguna and driver change at the same time, so that was a little bit hectic. And, it's a whole different intensity, though. If you go out onto a sports car race with kind of the open wheel intensity, you end up running into people and flat spotting tires. So you got to be, just a little more laid back and think long term instead of just pushing 110% the entire time.
Whom are you driving for, and how do they think to call you? Have you got sports car experience, or just you're a driver?
I was really lucky because, like I said, you have to be at a racetrack for things to happen. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with JDC, John Church. They race USF 2000. They race Pro Mazda. So I've always competed against JDC ever since I was 15, and F2000 with Andretti and all the way up. And we joked about doing the 12 hours of Sebring a few months ago, and that just didn't really come together. And Saturday at Barber, I ran into him in the paddock, and I just said hello, and he goes, well, what do you think about going to Laguna next weekend? I'm like, driving what? And he's like, a PC, and I'm like, I'll be there. Just tell me, when we start practicing.
Is it a totally different driving style because the car is so different, and is there a huge difference in the horsepower?
Luckily for me, the PCs just stands for Prototype Challenge, so it's kind of like the Indy Lights, the Prototype Series. And the old Indy Lights car, it was quite heavy, so as far as kind of transferring over, the PC felt a lot like an old Indy Lights car, but we did have about 80 more horsepower. That doesn't seem like a lot, but you do feel it. But the biggest struggle for me was power steering, because I've never driven anything with power steering before. So I kept going into the corners, and normally, in the open wheel car, you got to really grunt up and get ready to turn the thing in because it's heavy. And it was so light that I would do that, and the car would just take off. And I was like, oh, God, all right, I got to slow my hands down a few hundred miles an hour.
Do you think open wheel cars at any time will go to power steering?
There's a lot of talk about it, especially between the older drivers, because they think that that's where a lot of the hand injuries are coming from. They think if it's a little easier, the guys will be able to get their hands away from it and wouldn't break wrists as much. But I mean, for me being a little guy, I should be all for power steering because that's going to make my job easier. But I mean, quite honestly, I think that that's what sets us apart from the Formula One guys. I mean, if you see them, Jim Leo from PitFit had a great analogy. The guys in Europe, they just have to be, very fit cardio-wise and have really big necks. Here, our guys have to be, you guys, I was taken in a different direction than what you were thinking, but anyway. The guys over here have to be built kind of like body armor. I mean, you have to be really strong to handle these cars for the long periods that we do, and, I think that makes it a little more pure in a way because it puts another element into it.
Have you ever driven sprint cars or midgets or Silver Crown?
Actually, yeah, I don't. If you guys are familiar, of course, with Sarah Fisher, her father Dave was the one that actually introduced me into karting and built engines for me. And Dave is a little rough around the edges, so he definitely brought me up right in the karting world. And once I got started driving USF 2000, I felt pretty confident because I got to do my first oval. And he said, "Well, how would you like to get into a pavement midget?" And I'm like, "Oh, I've driven an open wheel car in an oval. This won't be any difficult." Well, he takes me to Columbus Motor Speedway, and first of all, the starting process was insane, getting pushed. I mean, that was a whole thing to get my head around. And then the open wheel cars have such tall gears when you get on the back straight that you stand on the throttle, you go up through the gears, and you'll slowly get to the speed that you're going. Well, I thought it was the same thing, so I get on the back straight at Columbus, I go to full throttle, and the thing just lights up completely, and I thought, this is an animal. I mean, to be honest, I told Dave that day that, I would like to race one of those, because if anybody can drive one of those on that small of a track without mirrors, spotters, or anything, has my full respect, because that's just fun. And for me, the other thing that was really weird was going into the corner and seeing my left front, or, feeling my left front come up. And, I mean, this is a whole different world, but, it's just fun. It's like bull riding in a way.
Well, you say you think you might have something going for this year. You think you might get the last couple races, or are there a couple of tracks that you're aiming for that you want to do?
It's definitely the plan to do, the last couple as I can. It depends how late it comes together, because if I do more than 3 races, I'll lose my rookie status. And, Michael, he always says that, winning Rookie of the Year in IndyCar is not as important as winning Rookie of the Year at the 500. So, I mean, I guess it's not that big of a deal. But for me, I mean, a couple races I definitely want to do is in Mid-Ohio, like I said, because that's my home track. And especially Milwaukee, too, because that's just some place I've always had a lot of luck at. I've never started from below the front row, and I've always finished on the podium there. So I think in an Indy car, it'll be a little bit different for sure. But, I mean, I think that's one place that I've always had luck at, so I hope it would continue for sure.
Have you had a chance to drive the new lights car this year?
Not yet. There is a possibility that you guys might see me in one, but I can't say too much about that. We're still working on it, but like anything else, unfortunately, to make cars go fast, it takes a little bit of, green things. So, that's the unfortunate part, but we're working extremely hard. I mean, like I said earlier, I have faith that when it's supposed to happen, it will. In the meantime, I just got to keep preparing myself for any opportunity, and I really appreciate you bringing me on, by the way, because, I mean, I don't have much to talk about not being in a car, but, it's nice to have people still wanting to listen.
For somebody who's had not much to talk about, you've been talking for 30 minutes.
I don't have many friends.
My question was aimed at whether or not you've been in, and you could compare the new car with the old one, but since you haven't been in the new car, it's really kind of difficult, although you've talked to guys that have, so you got the idea. From that perspective, is this a good advancement, as Jack had indicated?
I think so. I mean, I have a lot of respect for Jack, so whatever he says, I'll have to agree with. Because the old lights car, I mean, it was so much fun to drive because you really had to work around the many problems that it had. But, I mean, it was really a fossil. I mean, with the sequential shifting, no electronic aid there. I mean, it was great for a learning tool because there was a lot going on that a driver had to kind of comprehend and put together really well to be fast. But I think that's why we saw such a big difference in times in lights fields over the past 2 years, because you'll see one guy maybe on pole by 3/10 because he just got it right that lap. But the new car with the paddle shifts, the push to pass, if that comes back, I know they took that away for the last race because they were having some issues with it. I think it's going to be a better transition to the IndyCar, and that's what we need. So guys are going to be more ready to go to IndyCar, and the cool thing is, too, that the seats are interchangeable. So if I make a seat for a DW12, it can go into an Indy Lights car and vice versa.
I think, the way that the series has gone with Dan Anderson coming in and stating within weeks of him coming, we're going to have a new car, and by golly, he got it. He has everything that I'm aware of that he has said he wanted to bring to the series. He's done that. So it seems like, that things are really moving along. My only concern now is the last 2 years, the Freedom 100 has been won by less than the width of a piece of paper. Can that happen again with these cars?
It's hard to say. We haven't had much testing. We went to Homestead, they went to Homestead, I should say, a while ago, and they didn't do much pack running just because it was the first day of the car on the oval. So they go to Chicagoland, in 2 days. So that's going to be their first chance to really kind of run together. Unfortunately, a lot of people speculate that the cars are going to be more like the Indy cars that we have now, that it's going to be more of kind of a slalom, and you're going to have to pass more like you do in the big car, which is a great learning aid because it's going to teach guys how to, set up a pass and get timing. But, the Freedom 100s were fun because that was just like, brushing your finger against a hair trigger every lap. And, I mean, 3 wide at Indy, 4 wide at Indy. I mean, that's something very special that I don't think you'll get anywhere else.
The field is not what the lights people are what Dan Anderson and Jason Penix had anticipated. But from your perspective, sitting in a booth and watching them from on top looking down, and from my perspective, there's a lot of good competition. There's some really good drivers. I mean, Scott, I forgot his name, Anderson has picked up the pace. I mean, there's some good drivers. It's good tight racing.
Yeah, for sure, and that's the thing. Everybody always, speculates about the size of the Indy Lights field, and I mean, no matter if you have 20 cars in it or 10 cars, there's always going to be 6 guys. I feel that are always the 6 guys are out there that can go for a win. I mean, it's just always really competitive, even if the numbers are low. And I think now that we've gained some, the field is just as competitive or more than it was. And there's some names I wish you'd still see in there. Matt Brabham being my teammate last year. I mean, he became a really good friend of mine, and I hate for the struggle that he's had, and I don't know, for Andretti Autosport too. This has been kind of a tough year for us, but it's just one of those things. I mean, I think guys are getting the car figured out as we go, and the exciting thing is how many teams are competitive. We've had 4 different teams win so far this year, so that's exciting, especially being newcomers as well.
Where did this Carlin outfit come from? Boy, they came in the first thing, bing, they win them. 2 of them in a row.
That's the thing. I mean, I think when you're coming new into a series, you're either going to overshoot the goal or you're going to undershoot it. You're not just going to show up to be par. And those guys, I mean, Jack raced with them in Europe, and I've heard a lot of stories how they do things over there. They're a Formula One organization. I mean, they take everything extremely serious, and that's the thing I like to see is that they treat these Indy Lights cars like, they're Formula One cars. I mean, they take everything completely serious, and they show up to win, and that's what they did. And I plan that we'll see a lot more of them in the victory circle too.
I think it was impressive last week was the announcement by Ricardo Juncos about expanding, putting a 41,000 square foot, $3 million building in Speedway, with his plan in a couple of years to move up into the Indy cars. He has come on, and Schmidt-Peterson having a little trouble with them. They're performing quite well.
Exactly. And like I said, that's the beauty of the new car, because with the old one, I mean, Schmidt, Andretti, Bilardi, we had so much time to figure out the cars that it was really nothing new or nothing surprising when you went to the racetrack anymore. You kind of had your book figured out, and that's what you did. But I think the new car has definitely leveled the playing field. Now, it might change as the years go on and, the guys figure things out again. But what I think is cool is how not only is drivers starting in F2000 and getting to IndyCar, the teams are now too. The mechanics, everybody's starting on the Mazda Road to Indy and moving up as a whole. So we might see Carlin having an IndyCar. We might see Juncos having an IndyCar. I know the guys at Bilardi one day would like to have an IndyCar. It's just, I think it's good for the series. It's just, tough for the drivers because if you look at USF 2000, it's like, it's a big funnel going into a tight kind of field of IndyCar where there's not many seats left, but there's a lot of older guys in there that should be retiring soon. So, I think the young guys just got to stay hungry and keep pushing.
Yeah, but I'd like to see it like when I first came around, there was 45, 50 cars would try to qualify for the 500, and the 33 best made it. Now you got 34 cars. I guess James Davison is going to take the other coin car now from what I saw. And for those of you who didn't hear, Simona's car about 2 o'clock this afternoon caught fire and burned up. She won't be out tomorrow. She wasn't hurt. She got out. She's unhurt. But they said that the fueling nozzle got tangled up and had some fuel on the exhaust header and caught fire.
And actually Wilson had a little bit of an issue as well. I don't know if it was fire related, but I saw, he was stopped with smoke coming out of the car too. So it's been a tough day, but I mean, unfortunately, that's going to kind of end Simona's day and tomorrow maybe, but I mean, luckily, they got it all taken care of. So, I mean, that's the nice thing about where we're at now is you don't really have to worry about the things you had to back in the day when those guys were, really taking a risk to drive these things.
You're right. Safety is number one, and they've made the cars very safe for you drivers. And I'm sure that's probably the last thing you concern yourself with. Am I going to get hurt? No, these are good, safe cars, and the fire and safety team is on top of everything. And I think that's another advantage that the IndyCar has that a lot of series don't have is when you have a problem, you see the same people all the time, so you know they know what they're doing. Hopefully you'll get something put together. We look forward to having you. I appreciate it. By the way, how did your book do?
It did really well. I mean, for the 99 things teens wish they knew before turning 16, it was great because a lot of kids, I feel appreciate it, and I got a lot of good feedback from that. But I don't know, I was very young when I wrote that too, so I'm in the process of writing, one now that's more for kind of athletes, and it's just, kind of a no kind of BS in a way. Just look, if you want to do what you want to do, if you dedicate your life to it and work hard, you're going to make it happen. It won't be rainbows and butterflies the entire time, but I mean, anything's possible if you put your mind to it. So, well, that'll be probably done the next year or so.
Well, I hope before you finish it, you're in a car. Look forward to having you in a car. Always enjoy talking to you. Very interesting young man. Keep an eye on him. He'll be around. Zach Veach. Thanks. Now, next week, as you notice, I had said last week that J. Douglas Bowles would be here. I got an email from his administrative assistant that he has an operational meeting tonight, but he is available next week. We'll see. I talked to a guy that is very difficult to get anything out of. He's very quiet, but I'm studying, taking lessons on how to get Eddie Cheever to say something. I've been told that Sebastian Saavedra will be here. There's a couple others, so when you come in next week, we could run more than an hour. If I can get some guests, and I have to say it's very difficult to get the drivers because, believe it or not, the marketing and PR people are sending them out. A number of them, most of them, are making appearances tonight. And next week they're going to be all over creation. So we're going to do what we can do to get some. We'll have some good guests. Hopefully those watching and listening like the news picture you see. And if you're interested in checking out our YouTube channel, you go to AutoSport Radio Show on YouTube and you'll find it. We are there. So until next week, perhaps Doug Bowles, Eddie Cheever, Sebastian Saavedra. Who else? I don't know. We'll find out. Till next week. Thanks for being here. Thanks for watching, listening. Till next week. Good night. I want to mention one more time the USAC Benevolent Foundation